Good morning. I'm going to need you guys to be really loud, okay? Because we're here to open the Purple Stage. My name is Leanne Potter. I direct educational outreach at the Library of Congress, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 2018 National Book Festival, and especially to the Purple Stage. And I'm thrilled that there are young people as well as younger people in the audience. And I would love your help this morning in opening the Purple Stage, because I want everybody in this expo hall to know that the Purple Stage is open. So will you please help me yell a little bit? Okay, so here we go. We're going to do this. Oh, I heard a good one. That was good. Okay, so give me a P. P. Give me a U. U. Give me an R. R. Give me a P. P. Give me an L. L. Give me an E. E. And what does that spell? Purple. Yes, the Purple Stage is officially open. Woohoo! That was actually pretty good. Thank you. I was a little concerned. It was a little quiet. That was nice. Now it is my pleasure to welcome our first speaker to the Purple Stage. Matthew Cordell is both an author and an illustrator. He wrote Trouble Gum, Another Brother, Hello, Hello, and one of my favorites, Wish. Do you guys know that story? I love seeing nods. That's that story with elephants, and there's fabulous confetti. Okay, there's a line in that book that goes, before we were ready for you, or waited for you, or made plans for you, even before we knew we wanted you, we wished for you. And while the story is about parents wishing for children, it actually applies to those of us who work at the Library of Congress, and we wish for a day like today, and we wish for all of you to be here at the book festival. So thank you, and thank you for writing that book. Matthew has also illustrated the books of such renowned authors as Philip Stead, Rachel Vail, and Gail Carson Levine. He lives outside of Chicago with his wife, the novelist Julie Halpern, and their 2 children. He is also the 2018 Caldecott Award-winning author of Wolfen the Snow, published by Feiwel Friends, and he is with us today to read it. By the way, the Caldecott Medal was named in honor of 19th century English illustrator Randolph Caldecott. It is awarded annually by the Association for Library Service to Children, a division of the American Library Association, to the artist of the most distinguished American picture book for children. It is a huge honor. After Matthew's reading, assuming time allows, which we think it will, he will take your questions, and he will be signing books from 10:30 to 11:30 in signing line number 15. Welcome, Matthew. Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, good morning. Thank you all for waking up early and being here for the first presentation. I was a little worried. So my name is Matthew Cordell, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to read Wolfen the Snow to you guys. I always like to start out when I'm speaking to boys and girls. Raise your hand, who likes to write stories? Yeah, grown-ups can raise their hands as well. That's good. Okay. Raise your hand if you like to draw. Who likes to draw? Okay, good. Those are my favorite things to do. I grew up drawing, and sort of later in life I started to write. So I'm going to tell you a bit about how I do that, how those writing and drawing becomes a book. Oh, that's just the first slide there. So I grew up, so I live in the Chicago area now. Is anybody from Chicago by any chance? No? Okay, no one. But I grew up in South Carolina. Is anybody from South Carolina? It's a little closer. Yeah? So I grew up in South Carolina, and then, growing up in South Carolina, the thing about me is I always loved to draw. As soon as I could, put a pencil on a piece of paper and make pictures, I just loved to sit down and draw. That's always been the constant thing in my life is drawing. But, and so but now I live in Gurnee, Illinois. Has anybody been to Gurnee, Illinois? You have? Wow. Okay. So I moved to Chicago when I was after college. I moved to Chicago, and I lived there for about 6 or 7 years. I was about 24 when I moved there. And then I got married. My wife and I moved to it's a suburb of Chicago. It's about an hour north of Chicago. It's called Gurnee. We're famous for having a Six Flags Great America in our town. And my wife and I, we have 2 children. This is our daughter, Romy. And Romy is, she's 9 years old. She's going into 4th grade. Any 4th graders in the audience? Not a single 4th grader? How about, does anybody like Star Wars? Any Star Wars fans? Okay, good. So Romy was dressed as a Star Wars character. Does anybody, raise your hand if you know what Romy's dressed as. Who's Romy dressed as? Rey, yes, Rey from Star Wars. So I'm a big Star Wars fan. I grew up loving Star Wars, and I've sort of forced my children into liking Star Wars. So Romy was dressed, we were going to a comic book convention. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those, but you get to dress up in interesting costumes at a comic convention. So Romy was dressed as Rey from Star Wars, and our son, Dean, who's 5 years old, he was dressed up, and that's what he was dressed as. Who's Dean dressed as? Any Star Wars fans? Who's Dean dressed as? BB-8, yes, Rey's little droid sidekick, BB-8. Okay, so now I'd like to talk to you a bit about where I work and the things I do when I'm working. And oh, one more picture of a family member. Sorry, this is our cat Norbert, named after a dragon from Harry Potter. My daughter named Norbert. But so this is where I work right here. Isn't that a very nice looking place to work? This is my studio, and it's in the basement of our house. So I actually like to work from home. I can just get up and go downstairs and work without having to get in a car. And so, but does that studio look clean to you? No, it looks a little messy. Now, whenever I go around speaking to boys and girls at schools and at festivals, I like to show them pictures of my studio in its sort of natural state. And it gets pretty messy while I'm working. And a lot of that mess, it's not like gross mess, like food or dirty laundry. It's mess related to the books that I'm making. So there's sketches and drawings and different books laying around. So I like to show boys and girls, a space isn't always going to be clean while you're really busy working. And a lot of authors and illustrators probably want to explain how organized and clean they are. But I like to show them my studio sort of in its very active state. So just a couple other places. This is where I draw my pictures. And I'm going to show you the types of tools I use in a little bit, but I do all my pictures sort of the old-fashioned way. Some illustrators now do their pictures completely on the computer, and they will draw right on a tablet screen or a computer screen, but all my pictures are done on paper with pens and pencils and paints. But I do use the computer a little bit. This is my computer desk. Now, I use the computer mostly to write stories, but I also use the computer when I'm talking back and forth with the publishers of the book. And the publishers are the companies that print and send the books out to bookstores and libraries everywhere. So use the computer every day for that. These are some of the picture books I've done over the years. Now, some of these books here, the ones on the top 2 rows there, except for Troublegum, those were books that were written by another author, and I was asked by a publisher to illustrate their book. But the other books you see on the bottom row, those were books that I wrote the story and illustrated myself. So I do a little bit of both when it comes to picture books. And I also occasionally illustrate chapter books. I've never written a novel or a chapter book, but occasionally I get asked by a publisher to illustrate the cover and the inside pictures, which are usually smaller and in black and white. And the last type of book I illustrate is a poetry book. Do you get, boys and girls, are you reading any poetry? A few of you, yeah, okay. Poetry doesn't get enough action, I feel like, these days. So I really love poetry. Even I don't write poetry, but I do get asked to illustrate, again, other people's novels written in poems or different collections of poems. So that's the last type of book I illustrate. So now I want to read to you Wolfen the Snow. But before I do that, I wanted to just tell you a little bit about, and we heard a little bit in my introduction about it won the Caldecott Medal. Have you guys heard of the Caldecott Medal before? Raise your hand if you've heard of the Caldecott Medal. Okay, good. Occasionally I'll go to a school and there'll be no hands that go up, which is a little bad. But okay, so there should have been some text on here, but anyway, I don't know why it's not there. So the Caldecott Medal, it basically is it means it's the best illustrated American picture book within that year. So I won the Caldecott Medal for 2018. It was named after a British illustrator many, many years ago. And but the irony sort of is that you have to be an American citizen to win the Caldecott Medal. And the other thing is that it was, I think the very first Caldecott Medal was given out in 1938, I believe it was. So there's, in all those years and all the books that have been published, only like 70-something books have won a Caldecott Medal. So it's a really, really special thing. It was really exciting to find out, sort of a thing that a picture book illustrator dreams that's going to happen to them. So it's been a really exciting year for me. These are some Caldecott winning books. In case you're not familiar with the Caldecott, you've probably seen at least one or two of these books in your life. That one on the bottom right, Sylvester and the Magic Pebble, that's my favorite Caldecott winning book by William Steig. And these are the types of pens that I use. I use pens that you dip into a bottle of ink. And so you have to, they don't have ink inside them. They're kind of old-fashioned type of pens. And I do paint the pictures in watercolor. These are my brushes. Okay. So now I'm going to read the book Wolfen the Snow. And it's a wordless book. Have you guys ever read a wordless book? Okay, good. Yeah, get a little cheer. Okay, so there's no text. The pictures tell the story. So this is the first picture we see. We see a girl in her home with her family. It's snowing outside, and the girl, she's walking away from home, first thing in the morning, saying goodbye to her dog there. And we see the girl on this one page, she's walking somewhere, and we see the dog. What do we see on the other page there? We see wolves. Yes, we see a pack or a family of wolves. We turn the page, and now we see the title page, Wolfen the Snow. And now we see the girl, she's leaving school. So she was at school, she had gone to school, she's leaving school for the day, and even more snow is seeming to fall as we keep turning the pages. We turn the page again, and what do we see again? We see the wolves again, and they're walking through the snow. You can see the breath that you see. You can see your breath when it's really cold out, and more snow is falling. So now the girl's really fighting her way against this wind and this snow. The storm is really starting to pick up. And the wolves are fighting now against this wind and snow. And what's happening to that little wolf pup down there? It's falling behind. It's getting left behind by the adult wolves because of the noise or the confusion of the storm. So now the girl, she's fighting her way. She's trying to get towards these trees, maybe to get under some trees. And then we see the wolf pup is fighting its way to get towards those trees. And now for the first time, we see the girl and the pup in the same space. Now, if you ever encountered an animal in the wild, even if it's a baby or a small animal, you have to be careful with any wild animal because they're unpredictable. They're not like our dogs and cats at home. We don't know how they're going to react to people that they don't know. But this girl, she sees this pup is down on the ground. It's in a submissive state like that, and it's whining. So she reaches down for the pup to see if she might be able to help it. And she puts it in the snow, and what happens as it tries to walk across the snow? It sinks. Yeah, it sinks in the snow. So it can walk across the snow, but it can't get very far without getting stuck. So she picks it up, and the little pup howls. And then somewhere way across the landscape, across the distance, she hears another wolf howling. So she has to decide she could take this pup to these other wolves that she hears out there, which could be kind of scary. Or she could leave the pup here and she could try to find her own way home. But if she left the pup and just went home, I don't think it would be a very good book. It wouldn't be very interesting. So she's going to save the pup. She's going to walk and find and try to reunite this pup with these adult wolves. So she's walking. She's going to follow the howling. And as she's doing that, she has to brave all these other elements of nature. She has to climb up and down high hills of snow and cross frozen streams. She encounters other more aggressive animals like this angry raccoon there and, screeching owls, scary sounds in the forest. And what's happening as she keeps walking? What's happening with the howling? The howling's getting bigger and louder. So now she's climbing up that hill, and it's bigger and louder than ever, that howling. And now for the first time she finds one of these big adult wolves. Now, adult wolves are very big animals. They're much bigger than like an average dog. So just the size of a wolf in the wild could be a very intimidating, very frightening thing. And we see the girl, and she doesn't know how the wolf is going to react, and the wolf doesn't know how the girl is going to react. So they're just kind of looking into each other's eyes with this uncertainty. So the girl drops the pup. And what happens when the pup tries to cross to see its mother wolf there? It sinks again, yeah. But now the mother wolf is able to pick up the pup, and she can carry it off to safety. Now at this point, the girl is at the end of this very long day, walking through this deep snow, seeing these wild animals. She just falls over to catch her breath there. But she's got to find her way home, so she gets up and walks away. And we see in the bottom of the picture there, we see the other wolves have returned. And that one black wolf is watching her. It's maybe wondering where she's going and who was this girl that brought our pup back to us. Now she looks out into the night sky, and what does she see in the sky? She sees some lights, flashing. There's some barking. So maybe this could be her family. Maybe it could be another family that could help her get home. So she's going to follow those lights. But she's walking and walking, and now she's just so tired that she falls over. And when she falls over here, she's fallen into that covering of those trees. And who's come back now that she's fallen? The wolves have come back. And in these pictures, we see the wolves surround the girl, and then they howl. Why do you think why do you think they would howl like that? Why do you think they would howl? So they could attract attention. Maybe they want to help this girl like the girl helped their family. So they're howling there, and it doesn't. In fact, it does. It attracts attention. It attracts one of the people that's out there looking. And this could be the girl, or this could be the mom or the dad. In my mind, it was the mom, and she shows up with her flashlight. And then the wolves, so the mom and the daughter are together, and it's a very happy moment. And then we see the wolves at the top of that hill, and they're howling in this very happy moment. Can you guys give me a nice big wolf howl for this happy moment? Wow, that's good. Yeah, good. And now the two lights of the mom and dad find each other at the bottom of that hill. And then the book ends just like it began, with the mom and the dad and the daughter together in their home again. So that's the end of Wolfen the Snow. Thank you. And just really quickly, I was going to tell you about my next book that comes out at the end of the month. This is a very different book. I like to write sort of serious books, and I also like to write more humorous books. And this book was really based on my relationship with my daughter, Romy. Her name is, the girl dressed in the Star Wars. So Romy and I, we like to, we made a book together one day. We just sat down and drew and wrote a book. It was The Wizard of Oz, and she wrote it, part of it. And so I wanted to make a book about a dad and a daughter who make a book. But, I wanted the daughter to be this very headstrong, very spirited personality like my daughter Romy is. So this girl, Alice, she likes to dress up, she likes to take on characters, but she wants to be the strongest character, and she knows that the king is at the top of the chain of command, so she doesn't care about being the queen. She wants to be the king, and the dad's going to be the princess. So this is Alice getting dressed up in her king costume, so she becomes the king, and that's King Alice there. And then they proceed, there's Dad waking up. That may or may not be based on me. So Dad's waking up, and they're gonna, what are we gonna do today? And Dad's very tired. He sees that it's snowy outside. So Alice says, can we make cupcakes? And Dad's remembering the disaster that happened when they made cupcakes. And this is a picture of some fun that Romy and I had in the kitchen one day, where she dressed as a clown and threw a pie in my face. So the book was based on the different fun kind of things that we do together as a dad and a daughter. So then she says, can we play dress up, and can I do your makeup? And Dad's remembering what that was like, and this is a picture. Romy actually did my makeup one day. So she says, let's make a book. So they're going to make a book, and then they write a book, and then so really the book is sort of a day in the life of this family. So it's all the different fun things they do. They watch TV at some point about unicorn buddies, and then there's a unicorn stampede, and she hits her dad accidentally, and she gets a timeout. But they keep making the book, it's dinner time and so on, and then they read the book at the end of the day. So that's King Alice, and that comes out on September 25th. So look for that one. Thank you. Yeah. So that's the end. We have about 5 minutes for some questions. Does anybody have a burning question they need to ask based on some of the things we talked about? My friend over here, yes. How did I come up with Wolfen the Snow? Good question. So Wolfen the Snow, a lot of times when I write and illustrate, the stories are based on something that happened to me in real life. So King Alice is based on something. Some of my other books were based on actual things that I did or things that my kids did. Wolfen the Snow started out as a picture. It wasn't a story at first. I just had this idea for a picture, and that picture was a girl in a red coat. She was standing in the snow across from a black wolf, a big black wolf. And I didn't really know what it was going to be. And I didn't know much about wolves either. And I used to think wolves were big, bad, scary animals that wanted to eat up humans, eat up people, very scary beasts. And I learned about wolves, and I learned that they were not that at all. They'd had that bad idea about them for many years. But they really are just families like us, and they do hunt, but they hunt other animals, and they're pretty much afraid of people because of the way people have looked at them and treated them over the years. So I wanted to do a story then about a person and an animal who didn't really understand each other, but they ended up being in a position where they needed to help each other, and by doing that, they were able to learn about each other and become better beings, creatures, and people because of it. So that's how Wolfen the Snow came about. Really just by learning about the animals. Yeah, you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry, what was your question? Oh, okay. How did I draw so good without messing up? I love that question. Lots of practice. So, like I said, I've been drawing my entire life. And so I don't always draw so well. Like sometimes the drawings are not very good, and sometimes I have bad days when I'm drawing. But you just have to keep trying. You can't give up. So if there's something you like to do, if it's drawing or sports or whatever it is that you love, you're probably going to keep having those bad days. But if you stick with that thing that you love, it's really a cool thing to watch yourself get better and better every year that goes by. So for me, that thing was always drawing. So lots of practice, lots of good and bad drawing, but just being satisfied with the good drawings when they happen. Somebody else? Yes, question. He said, why do I dip my pens in ink instead of using pens that have ink in them? So the pens that I use, they have these special tips on them. They're called nibs. And that nib it's like a little metal point, and it opens up when you push down on it. So you can get lots of different thicknesses of your line when you're drawing. And so it makes the drawing more interesting to me. If I was drawing with like a pen, that a typical pen that has ink in it like this with a very fine tip, your lines usually are pretty straight, or not straight, but they're pretty consistent. They're pretty much the same as you draw with them. But I like for my lines to be kind of scratchy, and they get thick at times and thin at times. So that's why I use that special pen that you have to dip it in the ink, which is kind of a pain, but it makes it look a lot better to me personally. Somebody else. Anybody over here have a question? Okay, right here. Yes. What do I do when I get stuck? Yeah, good question. I get stuck a lot, and the best thing that I can do is just walk away from whatever it is, and you can even just going for a walk and and just getting away from it, getting some perspective, and thinking about other things, and and sometimes that helps clear your head. So when you come back to it, you see it differently, and you can look at it differently and problem solve it better than instead of just sticking on that one thing that you're really fighting to make work. So I see we have 1 minute. Any grown-ups have any questions? Grown-ups have to use the microphone. Or you can just shout it out. We have a minute. Someone up here, how did I celebrate the Caldecott? I went to Dunkin' Donuts and got some donuts with my daughter. That was the very first thing we did. Then we went to Disney World, and then we went to New York and saw the SpongeBob musical. One more question.
Do you always work in pen and watercolor, or do you ever use other mediums?
I pretty much only work in pen and ink and watercolor. I'm really comfortable with that, and I feel like I'm still learning in some ways, so I feel like I'm constantly evolving my process. Occasionally, I will color something. I've colored a couple books in Photoshop, sort of flat colors. But to me, my most gratifying way of working is in pen and ink and watercolor. So I'm seeing now I have to wrap it up. So one more round of applause for me, please. All right. Okay, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.